All right, and discussion to truth. This is Ian Trottier. Trottier like Cartier. That's just how it's spelled, I-E-R. And that's, from my understanding, how it's pronounced. So that's the way I pronounce it. Kind of like Brian Trottier, NHL Hall of Famer, 8 Stanley Cups, something like that. Coming your way, and look, last week I had 3 episodes. It just so happens today I'm going to do a solo hour. That's a personal choice. There's some information that I want to get out. I want you to listen to. At the moment, I will be streaming live next week from San Antonio. That's next weekend. And then there will be that's the Reawaken tour, which I've been involved with. There will be a Dallas event December, and then a Phoenix event January. So look for those on my Instagram page. Updates. Usually I use Instagram, not so much Twitter. Facebook is under fire. There's just simply no doubt about that. Changing their name now to Meta, and go to Jason Fick and check out what he's been doing. I am somewhat close to Jason, following what he's doing. He does have a team, a legal team that is going after big tech in the country.
Says they're also going to create race hatred.
Jason holds no bars, holds nothing back. Hold on a second, I've got John Eric Phelps running in the background.
He's a black Freemason.
So we will
He's there to agitate
see if I can get this
for the new right.
Right. Okay. So Eric John Phelps is a past guest of mine, and I'll be bringing him back on in the future. Let me get refocused here on what I was telling you. Socialmediafreedom.org. Socialmediafreedom.org is one of Jason's sites. And the interesting thing about the recent name change of Facebook, according to Jason and his legal team, again, socialmediafreedom.org, that name change has quite a bit to do with the fact that big tech is under fire and Facebook is under fire. Yeah, you might be listening to me and just thinking, oh well, there's nothing I can do. They meaning big tech, Facebook and Twitter, deplatformed the sitting president, the sitting voice, the loudest voice of the free world. And you might just be sitting there listening to me thinking, well, Ian, there's just simply nothing that I can do. And I urge you to realize that you are incorrect. If you are frustrated by both sides of the media, and look, I mean, it's just clearly divided. It simply is. It's media news, mainstream media is either in favor of Democrat policies or in favor of Republican parties. That is clearly by design. You do not control a free country without conquering it. And in America, if you're listening to this, you just simply must begin to think this way. Here is what is holding your freedom. That is the excessive military spending over the past 3 decades, 4 decades. That's what keeps you safe. The fact that there's just no other military on the planet that that can can compete with the American military. That is changing because the American military is being dismantled from within. Much, I contest, like the government. Okay, staying on mass media, or excuse me, big tech. Ron DeSantis, who I have been in contact with twice in person over the past year. Okay, I was first fortunate enough to grace Ron's presence in Mar-a-Lago with the Google whistleblower Zach Voorhees, and then in Hialeah, the neighborhood. Really, I think it's its own city in Miami-Dade. I was able to meet Ron, just kind of grace his presence, really. I was able to get to him, and at Mar-a-Lago, I introduced him to Zach. I says, hey, this is the Google whistleblower. Zach and I had previously done some of our magic, if you will. He and I had just have simply good chemistry, so we were able to get to the president's daughter, Tiffany, and one of her very good friends, and have somewhat of an exchange with the president at the time. This is last October 15th, a year ago, at Doral National. The president, as you'll see, if you visit my website, Ian Trottier, TROTTIER.com, the president acknowledged my appearance as being a prize fighter. So I purchased the domain name America's Prize Fighter. But he had previously, as written in Google Leaks, Zach's book, Chapter 13, he had previously greeted Voorhees and commended him on blowing the whistle on big tech. So that's big tech. And with Fick, who is somebody I have met with a couple times. In fact, I had gotten him close to General Flynn. General Flynn is somebody that recognizes me, so I was able to grab an ear and get Jason to basically explain on a dime, drop of a dime, what he was doing, his angle against big tech, and also we were able to get to Matt Gaetz. This happened a couple weeks ago in Miami. So backtracking from that, I was able to get to, Fick was introduced to me through a Facebook whistleblower, and I had mentioned the work I'd done with the Google whistleblower. So big tech is something that I've tried to contribute to over the course of the past year. And expanding on the interaction I had with Governor DeSantis in Hialeah, I actually said, "Hey, I'd introduced you to Voorhees at Mar-a-Lago, whether you remember me or not, and I'd like to introduce you to Fick, Jason Fick." He says, he's suing big tech, or suing the federal government over their inability to censor, or not censor, but curb big tech from their tyrannic measures of censoring And he says, under what theory? That's what Ron asked me. I didn't know, so I called Jason on the dot right there. Jason didn't answer until Ron had gotten into his car. I was basically walking. I'd gotten the approval from the governor's assistant. I think Ron had perhaps recognized me from Mar-a-Lago, gave me an opportunity to get a few words in, and I did. By that time, of course, of a few minutes, Jason hadn't answered. He got into a car. Governor had gotten into his car. And then, of course, Jason calls. What did I miss? You missed the opportunity to speak with the governor, as it happens. So I have been fortunate in my efforts. I have been fortunate on many different levels. Last week, hosting Anthony Sabatini, running for the federal seat, U.S. Congress, and a couple other great guests last week. Layla Sentner, who has organized a public school, and people are enrolling rapidly. Parents are enrolling their kids in this school because of the anti-mandates, vaccine and mask. Nothing wrong with a vaccination, as long as it is a vaccination and gone through the proper clinical trials and is proven to work. I mean, the COVID-19 virus has never even been isolated. So this isn't anything new to me because I had experienced it in 2016 in Miami Beach. That's the history from my angle. Layla Sentner, and then Gregory Stenstrom. I did an episode with him. He's leading the legal fight against Delaware County and voter fraud in Pennsylvania. So a recent publication, and again, I'm going to mention Fix book again, or website again. Just bear with me here as I pull that up, because I want you to. Jason's legal team has had the success that it has had, and my dialogue with Jason last week was, Facebook is now changing their name to Shelter and Hide Assets. Don't quote me on he's saying that. That was my understanding of what he was saying. And the name change coming up, and sure enough, the next day it was made apparent that Facebook was changing their name. I have this I have it in text message chronology. You've got a Facebook changes corporation name to Meta amid torrent of scandals, October 20th, 2021. So follow in regards to that name change, in regards to you the people, you the people, you the American people, in regards to your efforts, right? Because I'm kind of laying this out on the backbone of, you can do something. I've done something. You can do something. But you need to act fast, act now. In that sense, as you monitor the issues going on in big tech, please. This is October 20th, New York Post. And this comes, again, a day after Fick had mentioned to me that Facebook would be changing their name. So his angle, look, there's nobody else in the country, not even Donald Trump, not even Voorhees, because they're both going through California courts, which is going to stall. The California courts have been built to protect big tech for decades. I'm a native of California. It makes sense to me because I lived in Mountain View. I lived in Mountain View in 2001, when I was in Palo Alto at a Greek restaurant. Happens to be named Evia. I believe it's still there. When I overheard Charles Schwab exit the restaurant and begin to speak about investing in a company called Google. So Palo Alto, Mountain View, Cupertino, I spent many days of my life, years of my life. Lived in San Francisco for 8 years, so I understand. I understand the political scheme in California. Let me give you an example. give you an example. I support anybody's sexual preference. Okay, homosexual, heterosexual, whatever it is, it's your business. But I was not in support of the Proposition 8, right? Which was basically, well, I was in support of it because it basically defined marriage as between a man and a woman. Now, I became vocal about this because I felt like biologically it made sense. Now, you can argue with me, and I accept the argument that a gay couple can raise an orphan child uh, much more successfully, whether it's a gay lesbian couple or a gay male couple. It doesn't matter. Yes, there's no doubt in that. There's simply no doubt that two men or two women, whatever it may be, three men or three women, whatever the combination may be, there's no doubt that individuals are created differently and independently, in a homosexual couple can definitely produce a much more productive citizen of a country or of a nation, of a state, of a city, whatever it may be, than a heterosexual couple. There's no argument in that. But simply from a biological standpoint, I say, well, and this is I haven't changed my stance on this. I became vocal about Proposition 8. This was what 2000. Was it 9 or 10, maybe 11, somewhere around there. 8, I'm not sure. And I said, wait a second. Biologically, a male and a female, that is what the race is dependent on moving forward. Well, okay, now we have artificial insemination and those types of things, but naturally, by the design inherited, it's a biological production. So therefore, I based my argument on, well, that a heterosexual couple should be seen differently. Maybe a larger tax bracket, a break, or whatever it may be. I just felt like there should be some type of difference. That's just the way that I see things. And what appalled me was, I guess, a couple years later, the group fighting for those homosexual rights. Was it Supreme Court, California, federal? I'm not sure what it was. I think it was federal. And I think Kamala Harris was key instrument in that. Overruled the vote of the people. So the majority of the people came out in favor of the Proposition 8, saying yes, there should be a definition of marriage that defines that relationship produced by a man and a woman. So that got overturned. So I understand the politics of California, and California and New York are trendsetters because they are the main economic bases for the country. And then what I'll go in today is why you need to activate your alarm now. Your federal government's in a $30 trillion debt. And I'm not thinking of, I can't think of the name of the woman right now that was saying, Stony Brook, master's degree from Cambridge, that's written a book, The Deficit Deception or something like that, where she says that the U.S. government should have no problem or worry, or you and the government should have no, you are the government, anyway, no concerns, right? No concerns about a federal debt because the Federal Reserve, controlled by the U.S. government, can simply print more money. I mean, you've got a master's from Cambridge. That's why, perhaps. No, the U.S. Federal Reserve is a private central bank, as a matter of fact. And I can't think of the woman's name at the moment. Maybe I'll find it here on the Instagram. In fact, the U.S. Federal Reserve is a private instrument, and it controls the United States government, and it is regulated and monitored by an outside entity. That's in Basel, Switzerland. So I've gone through this. Here it is. Yeah, right here. Stephanie Kelton. She's not returning my email. The Deficit Myth is the name. The New York Times bestseller. Modern Monetary Theory and the Birth of the People's Economy. Quote, the federal government is the issuer of the dollar. Okay, Stephanie, I believe that you're wrong. I'll repeat, the federal government is the issuer of the dollar, so it can never find itself in financial trouble. This is a quote from this woman's book. She's got a master's from Cambridge. Stephanie Kildan, I think she's got a PhD, I don't know what it's from, Stony Brook, whatever it is. First off, Stephanie, the Federal Reserve Bank is not federal. It's not a creation of the federal government. Oh, sure, it was a law that was passed by Congress, making it having been passed by federal politicians that had been lobbied for and signed off by Woodrow Wilson in 1913. Well, sure, that's a fact. That doesn't make the institution itself or the act itself federal. It just means that the U.S. government has been hoodwinked, if you will, into accepting it. And then now, as the years have gone by, the Americans simply believe that it's federal. It doesn't mean that it is federal, because it's not federal. It's a private institution. It's a private bank. So I guess that's what happens when we get master's degrees from Cambridge. So anyway, so that's Jason Fick, and that's I was going to get you the name of the website again, which I did not deliver on, so here it is. The name of Jason's website is socialmediafreedom.org. Okay, so you heard in the background a theologian that I have been, that I've discovered. I discovered his work a few months ago. I had him join my show with Dr. Ardis, who is an outspoken, I think, is he an MD? I'm not sure if he's got the MD. He is a doctor, though. He does have a doctorate of some sort. Dr. Ardis, he joined my show with Eric John Phelps. Totally different topics, but what I found important, and they didn't join together. They just joined in the same hour. But both of these men understand that these vaccinations are inoculations. They are not vaccinations by definition. So that is the voice that you heard in the background, and I will go over a few things with you today about what he has said. And you can listen to his podcasts, you can listen to his work, you can read his writings. He's written a book called The Vatican Assassins, which I highly recommend you follow the work he is doing. Now, I've never mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it because it is now time. This has been almost 5 years that I've been doing this show. That is something I'm committed to, keeping America honest the best I can do. And I've been fortunate. The show has been very fortunate in that it has received some incredible guests. It simply really has been very fortunate in that the show has received some very incredible guests. Stephen Kinzer, John Perkins, Nomi Prinz, Chris McDaniel, Tom Hartman, Cynthia McKinney, Paul Hellyer, Paul Craig Roberts, Judy Mikovits, Dr. Tenpenny, F. William Engdahl, G. Edward Griffin, Lawrence Lessig, Jefferson Morley, Alan Keyes, Larry Klayman, Max Eigen, Jordan Maxwell, John Barber, Tarana Burke, the Me Too movement, Dennis Bushnell, NASA, Patrick Byrne. The list is extensive. And David Icke, David Knight, Robert Spalding. The list is, again, it's the quality of guests that this program has received is simply, and it's former CIA agents. I've now had at least 4. Pry, Dr. Pry, Peter Pry, P-R-Y, John Kiriakou, Kevin Shipp, Ray McGovern. Ray McGovern even said on the show, a guy that served 27 years in the CIA. Ian, we no longer have, this is 2018, he said this. Ian, we no longer have free media. The only hope now is people like you who can repair the damage and get people listening to people who know what they are talking about. This is a man that would hand-deliver briefings to the White House, in the Oval Office. Ray McGovern. This was under Bush Sr. 1963 to 1990, Ray served in the CIA. These are all people. Bandy X. Lee, who was not supportive of Donald Trump. So look. This is what keeps a free society free. Is Gerald Posner. The list goes on. The list is extensive. Yoram Laws. The and most recently, Wendy Rogers, Sonny Borelli. They're fighting for the voting truce, if you will, out of Arizona. So I have been dedicated to delivering you the research that I have found. And again, I mentioned that it began. The backbone of the work that I do is from having experienced the hysteria surrounding the Zika virus, Miami Beach, 2016. I was invited to start. It was an invitation. A woman says, "Come down to Wynwood Radio in Wynwood and Miami and talk about your findings." And so I did. And I've stayed committed to this because I know it needs to happen. And the only way change will happen, folks, is if you stand up. You can make a difference, and you can make a difference, whatever it may be. Whether it's you send this podcast or this message, send it off to somebody, tell somebody about the website. Go to my research tab. Just click on the research tab. I've got a plethora of information readily available, free, accessible. There's no charge. I don't charge. I don't make any money. I make no money doing my weekly shows. I've been doing them for 5 years. I do it because I know it must be done. Now, I've received a couple of donations over that time, and the people that have donated financially have done so handsomely, and I'm just incredibly grateful. And I've had donations in other ways. People send me guests, and again, it's because something is happening in your country. You are the last. If you're an American, you're listening to this. You are the last beacon of hope. You simply are. You're the last beacon of hope on the planet. Okay, and I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of why you were listening to Eric John Phelps there in the background. The only thing keeping, and this is the really, it's the unfortunate thing, because I personally never joined the military, not because I don't believe in self-defense, but when I was 20, so when I tell you about the story about Charles Schwab, and I'm hearing him walk out of this Greek restaurant, and he talks about investing in a startup search engine called Google, I thought to myself, well, there's Ask Jeeves, there's Netscape, there's AOL, there's Yahoo. Why a new search engine? Well, the mathematics behind the search engine. And it proved 2 years later, this small little company that I think perhaps at that time had an office on University Avenue. And I don't know who the other people with him were. Maybe when I saw Charles, and the only reason I knew it was Charles Schwab is because the guy I was next to says, "Hey, that's Charles Schwab." I didn't know anything. But they may have been with Larry Page or Sergey Brin. I don't know who he was with at that time. But he was talking about investing in Google, and he did. And Google is now this massive behemoth, and it's so big and controlling. It needs not act the way it's doing. That's for sure, and certainly Facebook and Twitter as well. These are publication platforms, and it's constitutional right. It has a constitutional right to be able to publish whatever you want, not be censored. That's your right. That's how I see it. And if you don't speak up against it, these people are going to continue to censor and shape you, shape the way that they want you to think. So we get into the they in a minute, but let me start with. I was going to go. If you go to the research tab on my website, you can read the letter that I wrote to every U.S. politician. It's about 2.5 pages, not that long. Maybe some more. I don't remember, but maybe 3. Read that. that's a message that I actively send to politicians to help them understand economically how the United States is a slave. So that's a new concept, right? What an interesting concept, Ian. I mean, you've got like these Black Lives Matter. You got these black people, Black Panthers, whatever. You got these black people saying, "Oh, Black Lives Matter." Yeah, sure, Black Lives Matter, but but let's. I mean, one of my oldest friends, not in age, but in lifespan, one of my longest time friends. He's a black man. Again, I'm not going to defend myself. I don't have to. I shouldn't have to defend myself, nor should you. Unless you are racist and whatever. Like, that's your choice, right? As long as you live your life peacefully, that's your choice. That's the whole thing, right? You can't even like voice your opinion, or else without being ostracized. And opinion is. I'll state this right here. I was in Dallas on a layover one time in an airport, and the most beautiful woman I ever saw in my life. Most beautiful woman. I remember seeing her to this day. A very dark-skinned African American woman. Just her beauty was incredible. So anyway, so again, I'm not going to defend myself, but here's the concept. Over the course of human history as we know it, right? We're at the precipice right now. We're at, what moves forward as the planet turns and orbits the sun. We're creating history right now. We're creating history. The fact that I'm speaking, you're listening, this is history. Well, here's the concept that the United States, okay, so individuals and ethnicities and different geographic makeups have been economic slaves. Here's this concept. Okay. If the Federal Reserve is a non-federal, which it is, it's a non-federal. Anthony Sabatini said it last week. He says the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional, needs to be repealed. He said it verbatim on my show, Anthony Sabatini. Okay, so the Federal Reserve is not constitutional. That means it's not federal. Parts of it are, just like the Bank of England. Parts of that do represent the people of the United Kingdom, but it is subservient to the City of London. So it is not entirely for the people. And the Federal Reserve, parts of it, yes, are represented by federal officials. And yes, indeed, parts of it do represent the people of the United States. But it is in itself is not controlled by the people. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution gives Congress power to coin money. I have that on my website. And when the country was created, it deliberately and purposely wrote coin. Because they didn't want, the founders evidently, did not want to use paper, because paper can be manipulated. A coin has a consistency of an intrinsic value, metallic value percentage, and you can literally do something, right, with that. You can exchange that. It's good. A paper is a note, a receipt, saying, oh yes, this organization, this bank is good for the value, right? It has so much silver or gold in it. Dr. Peter Beter, B-E-T-E-R, appointed the head of the Import-Export Bank, JFK, was saying in the early 70s. Or when did JFK die? 63? I don't recall. You have Dr. Peter Beter saying that the Rockefeller Foundation, oh, there's that name, the Rockefeller Foundation, right? The Rockefeller Foundation selling the gold in Fort Knox in the 70s to the, I believe he would say, the International Monetary Fund at below market value. Well, if that was true, then the United States has no gold in Fort Knox, and it would make sense because Richard Nixon in 1971 abolished the gold reserve, gold standard. Oh, should we have a gold standard, Ian? I'm not an economist, but I do look at history, and I can tell you that as large empires like the United States have devalued their currency, $30 trillion debt, I think it's at 28.9, last thing I checked a couple days ago, federal debt. When they've devalued their currency, their countries have fallen. So there's something to a gold or silver standard, i.e. JFK, inserting U.S. Treasury-backed silver certificates. Gets his head blown off 3 weeks later in Dallas. November was the 23rd, 63. I'm not. Forgive me if I got that date wrong. I simply don't recall it precisely at the moment. So some of these things, when you study history, they do make sense, and I think they will make sense to you, and it will cause you to act and to make a difference and stand up and raise your voice and make it heard. So Anthony Sutton is the scholar from the Stanford Hoover Fellow or Institute, who had walked away from Stanford because they began censoring him, and he printed. And I've been speaking about my book, which I've had an agreement with the publisher. I just simply have. If you want me to, if you want to contribute financially to the work I do, I ask you. I applaud that. I implore you. Please do. Please do. It gives me an opportunity to simply work on my work, which I'm not able to do that at the moment. So I've had this book that's had an agreement to be published now for 2 years, and the majority of it's, or 2.5 years, the majority of it's ready to go, but it's not. All right, so, but I've got a lot I can contribute. So anyway, so Anthony Sutton. So if you go to the research tab on iantrottier.com, go to the research tab, you will find PDFs that I've collected over the course of 4 years. You will find work such as Western Technology and the Soviet Economic Development, 1917 1930, Anthony Sutton. Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution, Anthony Sutton, 1974. Sutton wrote that economic development book in 73 or 2, I believe. I don't have it listed. Wall Street and FDR. Edmund Walsh appointed FDR, essentially. And again, I'm going to ease into this for you. The War on Gold, 1977, Anthony Sutton. Trilaterals over America, that's David Rockefeller. Anthony Sutton, 1978. Federal Reserve Conspiracy, 1995. So then you're getting this kind of word conspiracy floating more mainstream, I think, in the mid-90s. Federal Reserve Conspiracy. So Sutton was saying that there was no theory behind this. This is a conspiracy. This is an exterior group that has invaded the United States, controlling it economically. Therefore, my comment earlier, the United States is in itself, the corporation, the government that's subservient to the corporation, is a slave. It's a slave. What an incredible concept, right? It's a slave. It itself is a slave. So there is according to Anthony Sutton, which I support, there is a conspiracy to dismantle the United States, as you and I would know it if you live in the United States right now. So it's not about, it's just simply, it's not about this garbage and this filth that you get from mainstream media. I mean, yeah, you've got Kyle Busch, right, a NASCAR racer. He uses the word retarded. I think it was in the context of the guy that cut him off, so the other guy won the race. I'm not sure what it was. But now he's got to go to, now NASCAR is saying, well, you've now got to go to sensitivity training courses. I mean, are you out of your mind? This is insanity. You can't use the word retarded out of context. So when would that properly be used to say retard, retardation, slowing? And it made him slow. It caused, if you get cut off, if I've got this right, his car was cut off, and so he was retarded. The movement of the car was retarded. So he uses that, and it somehow offends someone because perhaps their son or daughter or brother, who knows, is retarded. Like handicapped retarded. It's beyond me. It's just gone too far in America. It's gone too far. If you support these types of censoring, the censorship, then this has gone too far. You're over the line. You're over the line. Sticks and stones breaks a bone, but words don't hurt. So stop with your gross attempt to control people's language. Enough is enough. The best enemy money can buy. Sutton, 2000. But you're also going to get a work like Plato's Republic, or Menno, translated by Lee Perlman, MIT. Plutarch, The Age of Alexander, by John Dryden. King John I, Concession of England to the Pope, 1213. The Paris Peace Treaty, Yale Law School, 17. Is an example of the Last Will and Testament, Cecil Rhodes. These are links that you'll find. on my website. Papal Authority, the government within the government. Gilbert O. Nations, 1917. Hitler's Secret Bankers, Sidney Warburg, 1933. The Empire of the City, the Jekyll Hyde Nature of the British Government, E.C. Newth, 1946. None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, Gary Allen, 1971. Beyond Freedom and Dignity, B.F. Skinner, 1971. The Rockefeller Files, Gary Allen, 1976. 1976, Federal Reserve Directors, A Study of Corporate and Banking Influence, 94th U.S. Congress. Dr. Peter Beater, Audio Files, 1984. Behold a Pale Horse, Milton William Cooper. The Secret Side of History, D. Zane, 1994. The Dark Alliance, Gary Webb, 98. The New World Order, A. Ralph Epperson, 2009, former guest of my show. The World Order into 2050, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, 2010. Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development, Rockefeller, FDN, 2010. Survey of Sources at the Rockefeller Archive Center for the Study of the Transfer of Western Science, Medicine, and Technology to China, David Lusink, PhD. Free Yourself from Microsoft and the NSA, 2013, by David Spring. You go through some of the work that I've collected for you. It's all free. You just click. Most of them are available on archive.org. Just click and go through this stuff. Climate change and 75% problem. Bill Gates, 2018. Hostile social manipulation. Michael J. Mazar, 2019. How about this one? The prelude to Operation Iraqi Freedom. Tim Cake, University of Calgary. 2017. America's alleged intelligence failure. I'll tell you where the intelligence failure is, folks. That for over 100 years, we the people, that means me and you, have been unable to stop this Federal Reserve conspiracy. Instead, we allow ourselves to be defamed, censored, abashed for being outspoken against what is very apparent, an exterior source aimed to dismantle the United States. And they've done it economically. The People's History of the United States at Thistle, MIT, 2001. The research I've collected is extensive. And Webster Tarpley, How the City of London Created the Great Depression. The Secret Pact of Standard Oil and the Nazis, Gabby Weber, 2013. The Illusion of Democracy, Phil Manetti, 2017. I can go on and on. I've collected this for you. I've collected this for the listener to read. Educate yourself, to pass the information on. This isn't my research, folks. Right? I mean, it's not me saying, oh, from my research, I'm calculating all the tabs and saying, hey, the Federal Reserve is non-constitutional from Woodrow Wilson. It should be repealed. It's not me. I mean, I'm saying that, but it's not my. It's based off of a collection of so many people throughout the years that have been sounding the alarm, if you will. Here's a good one. Anthony Fauci emails. The Freedom Information Act exposed by Jason Leopold, 2020. Uncanny similarity of unique inserts in the 2019 nCoV spike protein to HIV-1, GP120, and GAG. That's a study out of India. So, if you take the time, machine learning, NSA, 2019. If you take the time, DARPA, 6 paths to non-surgical future of brain-machine interface. Brain-machine interface. Brain-machine interface. If you like your freedoms, you better speak up now. Because that DARPA study I just mentioned to you, if I have it right, it proves that you can inhale nanoparticles without you knowing. And they break the blood-brain barrier, they enter the brain, and they communicate with Wi-Fi signals without you even knowing. So if you like free speech, if you like free press, you just speak up. You need to speak up. I cannot sound the alarm more urgently. And you know what? I get people, you know. So we have a stolen election. Okay, we had a stolen election. Seriously, if you think that wasn't a stolen election, I mean, were you not watching the television that night. It was like 10 o'clock Eastern. It's like, oh, we stalled. We have to stop counting. What? You have to stop counting. And then all of a sudden, boom, numbers start flipping, going sky high for Biden. It's like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No, it's no joke. No, it really happened. The election was stolen. Okay, so hold on. All right, so Ian, oh my gosh, that was the most free election ever. People are sending in their mail ballots. There's no threat to the Republic and the democratic values that we hold. No. There is a threat. There's a major threat. There's a big threat, and it's been this way, folks, prior to Donald Trump deciding he wanted to run for president. Much prior to that. Here you've got a guy like what's his name? Barack Obama, right? Barry Soltero, right? Barry Soltero. He doesn't like his name Soltero. So here you got a guy that can't even burnish, can't even present a legitimate birth certificate. He seems like a nice guy. I've never met him. Seems like a really nice guy. Seems like a guy you could have a beer with at the pub, shoot the poop, and he seems like a nice, very well educated human being. The problem is he's adopted these socialist Marxist philosophies, and then we get 8 years of him, and then we get why not get somebody like Condoleezza Rice? You want a woman? Get a black woman in the White House. Why does it have to be Barack Obama? Okay. Like I said, I haven't met him, and I think there's aspects of universal this and universal that makes sense. You've got it's the great conundrum, right? The Das Kapital, the Karl Marx, and not that Karl Marx was a bad person either. When he's writing that in the British Museum, funded by Frederick Eagles. Here's the real interesting, and so this is a great segue into what I want you to start. If you're listening to this, I want you to start going down this road. I want you to start listening to Eric John Phelps. Peter Becks was the head of the Society of Jesus, otherwise known as the Jesuits. The head of that organization is a military general for the Vatican. And what Eric John Phelps is saying is that Peter Becks was tutoring Karl Marx while he was writing Das Kapital at the British Museum after he'd been kicked out of Germany by Otto von Bismarck. Okay, so anyway, in regards to I'm going to go back to Anthony Sabatini. I'm going to go back to Anthony Sabatini because here's a guy, in my view, that is not he's clean. He's not pulled. He doesn't have strings. There's people that you would question, or where there's strings. Guys like Abbott out of Texas. Where are the strings that are being pulled here? And it's both sides of the aisle. I mean, we've got this corruption that has just infiltrated both sides of the aisle. It's really, really exhausting. It's disgusting. And the fact that a small party like the Green Party or something like that, or the fact that a party just can simply not gain momentum to be taken seriously is a problem. That's called a monopoly. It's called you've got a monopoly on your government. Oh wait, hold on, Ian. Wait a second. So isn't the Federal Reserve Central Bank a monopoly? Why, yes. I believe by definition it would be. Well, can you get the Supreme Court to rule against them? Well, you can just get the Congress to overturn that act. The act of Congress to overturn the Federal Reserve Act in 1913 and repeal it. Sabatini for president. As far as I'm concerned. And maybe we can get Ron DeSantis to do it. Maybe we can get Donald Trump to do that. I don't know. I haven't spoken to Donald Trump face to face. He has said something to me face to face, but he didn't shake my hand when he walked past me, and I didn't get a chance to exchange any words with him. His daughter went to Georgetown, and that's so in regards to being manipulated from exterior source. That's what you just have to. You just have to come to grips. I know. It's a difficult thing, perhaps. As a very proud American, thinking you're so awesome and so cool, and you have such great companies like Nike, and you have great sports teams like the Yankees, and the Sears Roebuck, and you've got Google, and you bring all these great things to the world, and you control the world. You've got, how many aircraft carriers have you got circling the planet? Right? In China, I know they're trying to catch up. You can be a real pompous and conceited about being America. Well, hold on, not so fast, not so fast. And I don't care if you're Asian American, Mexican American, European American, whatever it is, African American. I don't care what kind of American you are. If you have that viewpoint, you say, "Oh, wait, no, the hippie revolution, and we, this is the great melting pot for the world, and we have gay rights." And by the way, in regards to what I was saying earlier about my stance on Proposition 8 in California 15 years ago, my best friend was gay. Okay, he was a gay Jew, as a matter of fact. All right, I no longer have him. We don't have him, but that was my, and he respected my position, and I respected him, and we just simply never had talks about how he would, or how he. I never spoke to him about his view on Proposition 8, but he respected me. And that's what we should have, and it didn't hinder our relationship. I'm not homophobic in any way. I think everybody should be treated equally. And just because you're a homo, there's some great homosexuals that I've met and known. It doesn't mean that I'm homosexual. It doesn't mean that they don't like me because I'm not homosexual. That's not what it's about. And it doesn't mean that they disrespect me because I don't agree with a definition of marriage. I'm not saying I don't agree with homosexual marriage. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it should be defined. I'm saying that marriage. I'm not getting back into that, but I rest my case. So, for the moment, so with, and I think there's something going on with this audio, and I apologize for that. But if you've gotten this far, then it hasn't hampered you from listening to what I'm saying. So. Okay. Both sides. This is a constitutional issue now. And Paul Craig Roberts said on this show, probably 3.5 years ago, Americans no longer have any constitutional rights. Here's a guy that was a fellow at Stanford and Oxford. I can't argue with that. But what I can say is this. I'm speaking my mind freely right now. Okay, I'm speaking my mind freely. Well, what we are approaching here, folks, is that becoming a problem. We do have what I argue is a banking system that not only controls the politics of the government, so they're basically controlling both sides of the main aisle, the Democrat and the Republican of the aisle. That banking system, using technology, has rigged the 2020 election. I stay with that. And I'm going to expand on that. It's not the first time the election's been rigged. You can go back 20 years prior to Bush Gore. Right? So, and maybe the Trump election was rigged. Right? Maybe the election. But the fact that you have a president, you have somebody in there for 8 years, and you have Pelosi now presiding over Bush. Did she get in with Clinton? I don't remember. Was she in there with Clinton? She was doing something in D.C. When Clinton was there. So you get in with Bush. You got Pelosi getting in there with Obama. Pelosi's in there with Trump. And now you got Pelosi still in there with Biden. I mean, that's a swamp rat. And I'm sure she's an attractive one. I think she's a nice woman. I'm sure, again, and I've met Gavin Newsom a couple times, briefly. He's a charming person, a handsome man. He seems like a nice guy, kind of like even with Joe Biden. I mean, you sit down and have a beer with Joe Biden. Yeah, kind of like these are nice. They're nice people. They're nice, decent folks. And maybe you don't like me saying that, but I'm being honest with you and how I feel. But it doesn't mean I agree with their politics, and it doesn't mean that they're not being they're not being manipulated, because I believe they are completely and fully. And so I do not agree with their politics, and they shouldn't be in politics. And Nancy Pelosi should not be sitting as Speaker of the House over 4 different presidents. I mean, come on, this is absurd. This is absurd. How you allow this to happen? How we allow this to happen? I think 8 years as a president is too much. All right, so let me get to the nuts and bolts here of the message I want to deliver to today. Here it is. Eric John Phelps. This is what I've been hot on for really about 10 days now. Because as I'm exposed to the Zika virus, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Why is the local cry in Miami Beach? They're saying, stop spraying this pesticide. It was my gay friend. Okay. Again, I feel like I have to justify myself. All right, that's the problem. I shouldn't. And nor should you. None of us. We don't need to be justifying ourselves because we think something. As I'm looking at the local outcry against the spraying of this pesticide, that MIT, Ricky Rosero, educated Ricky Rosero, the governor of Puerto Rico at the time, had banned the shipment from the World Health Organization. I'm looking at the X's and Y's, and I'm trying to cross these things, right? I'm trying to, and everything's checking out. So the locals are crying about this being a neurotoxin. So in short, I go from the study of Zika to the pesticide, and the Rockefeller having involvement in both. And then I'm led to this guy, Sutton, that delivered a speech in 1972, Miami Beach. And I just started doing this program. But it wasn't necessarily like every week I'm talking about the Zika virus. I smelled the pesticide. It smelled like burning flesh. I was told not to protest against it because I'd be charged as a terrorist. Former JAG lawyer told me that. I have it in text message. Okay, so, but it kind of flipped my switch, and I thought, this is nuts. There's something going on here. And so I follow the money. Follow the money. Go to Sutton. And then fast forward 2019, because again, this started in the fall of 2016. I began doing my shows weekly, 2017. And fast forward 2019, boom, Catherine Austin Fitts. This is about the onslaught of a forced vaccine. This COVID-19. She started talking about this in March or April of 2019. She's on American Watchdog. She's saying next thing's going to be vaccinations, and it's not the vaccine. It's not the health angle that will be the motive to have you vaccinated. It's the technological angle. And you got people out crying again. Bill Gates. Oh, he wants everybody vaccinated. He's sinister. The Space Needle in Seattle. Microsoft, microparticles, ID 2020, Microsoft patent WO 2020-060606. These things just start to surface, and you're like, whoa, this is, again, follow the money train. Oh, let me catch a ride on that money train. Let me ride that money train. Ride the money train. Money train. Where's it going? Well, I'll tell you where it's not going. And it's not going to pay back any of the United States federal debt. That's not where it's going. Where it is going is it's going in a direction to further enslave the country you know as the United States, which means to further enslave you. And it has nothing to do about race. The money system could care less about your race or your skin color. I just told you the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life was an African-American woman I saw in the airport in Dallas, Texas. I mean, this woman was gorgeous. I see beauty in all races. There's beautiful women in all races. There's beautiful men in all races. There's beautiful people in all races. Okay, beautiful beauty, as you probably concur, comes from within, right? And then it flourishes like a flower on the outside. And some of us do have thorns. Yes, they are very sharp, aren't they? So anyway, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is Catherine Austin Fitts, who's again, I mean, she has agreed to join this show, and I'm thinking, wait, I'd been following the money in the show since 2016. I'd gotten these former. I've had great guests on the show. I simply had. The show has had great guests because it's symbolic, really, of the garbage that we allow mainstream media to feed us with. And like Ray McGovern said in 2018, voices like mine and yours, hopefully, that's the last frontier. So if you remain silent, you are only hurting yourself. You follow the money trail, and then it's, right, the Great Reset. Carl Schwab. Not Charles. Carl. The Great Reset. So at that point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I had basically come to the understanding that the Federal Reserve is a central bank. Right? There was no doubt in my mind about that. It's privately ran. It's privately regulated by the Bank of International Settlements out of Basel. It basically is subservient to the City of London, which is a non-UK entity. It has the name London, but it's not part of London as you know, Big Ben, Hyde Park, Buckingham Palace. It's not part of that. This is a Roman banking mechanism system that predates William the Conqueror, 1066. It's still in place. And the City of London is not part of Great Britain. It's not part of the United Kingdom. It controls the monarchy. Now, just like the Federal Reserve controls the president, it controls the White House. It controls the government. This is what you need to understand. You basically have a king or vice queen. Kamala Harris. You have a king and a queen, basically. These are people that are picked for you. Okay, go to the book. Get this for you. Pull this up for you right now, and this is where you can follow. This is where you really can follow the money. Go to a book right now. Written by, let's see here. Here we go. Written by James and Kenneth Collier, Collier. Vote Scam, The Stealing of America. I believe it was written back in the 80s. Someone involved in their family redid it a number of years ago. Vote Scam, The Stealing of America. And it basically shows how IBM and the technology IBM, which started, I think it was in the 1920s, Columbia University, Hamilton Hall, IBM not only is controlling transfer of funds wirelessly, or wirely, now wirelessly, but initially via wires. The IBM controlling the banking, right? And somehow, not saying that IBM in itself controls the banking system. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is the inception of it basically was to do that, and it does that. So therefore, then controlling the voting system, which is what this book argues. Okay, that's what this book argues. And you can prove me wrong, but using IBM, which is based off of telephone, wiring these funds or votes, if you will, is based off of telephone lines, right? The invention of the telephone. The first telephone call takes place at Jekyll Island. Not sure what the year was, but that is also the same club, if you will, organization that produced the Federal Reserve Central Bank. You can get that through the Creature of Jekyll Island, through G. Edward Griffin. So the technology, therefore, being used to manipulate not only the banking industry, and that's why it was so critical to get the United States dollar off of the gold standard. They used Richard Nixon. I'll explain to you who I think that they are. This group used Richard Nixon as their pawn to make that happen. That happened again. Nixon's shock, 1971, and using this technological advance to control the voting system. As the Collier brothers, I believe they are, say that this happened officially after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, so with LBJ. So it explains, therefore, why you get Well, you get the Vatican reestablishing the relations with the United States government officially under Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan being a pawn to basically create this massive military to enter this Cold War era with the Soviet Union. If you go back, fall back a little bit, you got in 1945, you get the Bank of China established, which is a central bank that controls the Chinese through their implementation of communism. Again, I'm not sure what this in and out is here today with this, but I do acknowledge there is a audio issue. You got these mindless wars. What is it? Like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. So you bring in these other pawns. The Bush, right? So Bush Senior, and then you got bring in Junior, both part of this banking fraternity that I call it, Skull and Bones out of Yale, that do nothing more than what? They do the bidding. They do the work. I mean, why are you in Afghanistan for 20 years? Because Ian, if we're not in Afghanistan, was it Afghanistan or Iraq? Oh, it's the same network. It's ISIS, and Saddam Hussein was part of ISIS. I mean, come on, really? I mean, you're just fooling the American people year after year after year after year after year. And now it's coming to fruition because now it's like, well, Afghanistan was basically for opium trade, just like Iraq was for gas, right? Crude oil. Oh no! But the mainstream. No, it wasn't. Look at these. Look, Saddam Hussein had nuclear. He had weapons of mass destruction. And I mean, this is why I didn't join the military, because I realized it was a banking scheme. Now I didn't realize it in the depth that I understand it now. But this is why I didn't join the military. Not because I don't like the Army and the Marines. I fully support national defense, self-defense. And I was very close to joining the military at various times in my life. And police departments as well. I believe in security, order. Yeah, I believe in this. But if you realize, okay, it's Biden's debacle. I'm not sure what happened there, but clearly not his move. So who's going to be going into Afghanistan next? I've been saying this. I believe the Chinese. The Chinese are the next pawn to be used on that chessboard. Again, it's opium trade. Opium. It's the pharmaceutical industry. There's all sorts of different manipulations on people through the pharmaceutical industry, but this COVID-19 is an example of one. And I do believe that it has economic implications to somehow mesh technologies such as ID 2020, quantum dot tattoo, which is basically, right now you can walk into a grocery store and run your device over the Bluetooth machine, and right, you don't have to use a card. You just pay for your items with your cell phone. I do it all the time. And I think likely the vaccination agenda is, like many people have been saying that are, quote, conspiracy theory, but that's, I don't care what people label me. Look at the facts, look at the technology. So the vaccines do seem to have the digital reset agenda meshed in it. There's just no doubt about it. Now, is there an agenda to literally try to kill people? I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But what I do know is that the vaccinations do have consequential health issues. People are dying from them, and this is where the HIV studies intertwine that are very interesting, because, like, for instance, the Zika virus, and I haven't studied this a whole lot, but like the Zika virus, you have it acting the same way as the pesticide. Yet what got me going was that the CDC was saying that the pesticide was, the CDC was saying that the virus was causing, was breaking the blood-brain barrier and causing microcephaly in these developing fetus, and the children that are growing in the fetus. Yeah, my research, and I had reached out to New England Journal of Medicine and Lancet. My research showed that it was the pesticide that was doing that, and that there was no science. There was no science. Nobody could send me science that the virus itself broke the blood-brain barrier. Yet I was getting information out of Sweden that the pesticide itself broke the blood-brain barrier. This is 2016. So what's in the vaccination, so-called vaccination, that breaks the blood-brain barrier, right? And what's going on there with DARPA and body activity data, cryptocurrency? This is kind of the transhumanism type elements of advances in technology that you can look into and research. But um, what I argue, or what I argue for, is a continuation of our constitutional rights. So free speech, free press, free religion. Vote scam: the stealing of America. James M. Collier, Kenneth F. Collier. So if you pull back, and this is what I did, I pulled back and I said, who? Okay, so we're told 9/11 that it's the it's Islam, right? Islam's the bad the bad guys. Islam. I mean, come on, man. I dated I dated a woman from Iran. I don't think she was Islamic, but some of the most incredible people I've ever known are non-white people. So anyway, so we're told that Islam, right, has this, and this guy Bin Laden, right, that lives in a cave. He's got the sophistication to bomb arguably the most important building in Manhattan. Okay, and the U.S. military, he outsmarted the U.S. military. I mean, the crap that Americans are fed. Okay, maybe the planes were hijacked, but I don't believe it was done in the name of whatever Islamic god. Why was it done on the U.S. soil? Because the United States is a beacon of freedom of religion. That's how this country came into existence. So you basically blowing up New York, or two buildings in New York, I'm generalizing New York, but you're blowing up, and of course they attacked the Pentagon and the White House and they together. But you're blowing up two buildings in New York in the name of your God. Yet you can literally move to this country and practice your religious beliefs freely. So that just makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense that you would want to destroy America when America's the one saying, "Hey, all religions, come and huddle your downtrodden masses, practice what you want peacefully." America's the only country that's done that. What was the initial successfully anyway? So then, if you're looking at it from that angle, you're saying, well, then who? America's gotten involved in all these mindless wars that it really shouldn't be getting involved with, but it's being forced into this because of economics. Okay, kind of like the Chinese are forced into building a military to defend themselves from who? Well, the United States is the United States is a non-aggressive nation. The United States was founded upon a principle of, right, the Pilgrims, of practicing religion freely and how they want. Okay, so they had to battle the natives. They battled the natives. That's just the way it is. Okay, the Spanish did the same thing in Mexico. It's just the way it is with the European settlers. But the difference between Mexico and the United States, of course, is this religion, right? The Spaniards forced Catholicism on the natives, and of course on their later generations, their prosperity, and then it was a little bit different with the Pilgrims, right? A little bit different. Whereas there was a freedom of religion, there was no forced religion. So then, if the United States, moving forward a couple hundred years, is doing the bidding of some other organization, because it's being forced into this international economic control. You have to look at things like the British East Indies Company. What are the elements of that company that still exist? And of course, everybody looks at the Rothschild. Many people look at the Rothschild. So what organization? Now I'll get into the nuts and bolts here and wrap this up. But what organization historically? What organization exists on the planet that would have that type of sophistication to be able to engineer a mass control rollout, where it is now going country to country to country to country to country to country to country, and it is it's the pardon me, it's the connection with the. Hopefully, that was just my headphone. So, what country, or excuse me, what organization would have the history, the network, the sophistication to roll out some type of a global order like this, where everybody's mandated to get vaccinated? You hear the pawn. He's more of a pawn. I guess he's more of a maybe he's a castle. Bill Gates. But you get a guy like on the chessboard saying, "Oh, I want everybody on the planet vaccinated. We got a health crisis." What do you care? Now you only care about your money. You care about Microsoft and your computer engineering. Well, you care about your money because you're invested in healthcare, and somehow the healthcare system, is intertwining with the micro technology, micro software technology. No doubt about it. I've already mentioned WO 2020-060606, Microsoft Patent for Digital Currency. So what organization would have that sophistication? And this is why I bring in Eric John Phelps. The Rothschild are a name most of you are familiar with, because through them and J.P. Morgan and agents ashore, the Federal Reserve, central bank, came to being. But there are much wealthier families, I contend, on the planet. You take the Queen of England. I'm not saying the Queen of England is wealthier than the Rothschild. She may be. But I will contest that you look at the jewelry and the palaces and the real estate that she owns and controls. I would argue that would far exceed the wealth of somebody like Bill Gates. Whereas the United States is simply, or the World Economic Forum is simply feeding the masses what they want to feed them, and saying, "Oh, it's Bill Gates, it's Elon Musk, it's Jeff Bezos." What are the entities that control? That really, truly control. For instance, the www protocol. Tim Berners-Lee, a British scientist, inventing the www writing it at CERN in Switzerland. So this is what Eric John Phelps starts to mention. He starts to mention these names, and you can look at these names yourself. Okay, these are kind of noble names, that family names that far predate the existence of the United States. Orsini, Franazzi, Gattani, which is the American Gotti, is controlled through that name, and that's where the term Goth comes from. Here's another one, Aldo Brandini. So these sound Italian, they are Italian. Therefore, what organization has existed over the centuries that would have the sophistication, that would have the ability through their networks, through their extensive networks globally? What organization would have that ability to roll out this type of global control unit? And this is what Eric John Phelps argues. The answer is not the Vatican, because the Vatican is comprised of three popes, if you will. Bergoglio, right, which is the white pope. He's not Franciscan, even though his name implies it is. Francis. Sosa, the black pope, the head of the military unit of the Vatican, the Society of Jesus, Jesuits, or the Grey Pope, and that would be Pepe Orsini. So the Vatican there consists of a three-head, a trinity, a white, a black, and a gray pope. So what Eric John Phelps argues, and I'll bring it back onto the show at some point, is that it is the Jesuits, the Jesuit order of the Vatican, that has corrupted that organization. This is what he argues. This is what he argues, and I cannot argue with it, because it makes complete sense to me. Now, I did not. I began probably 8 to 9 months ago thinking, and perhaps a year ago, I began to think, what organization would have the sophistication to roll this out? And I began looking at Catholicism, a religion, as the culprit. Why? Because the majority of us are likely bred into a religion of some sort, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, Buddhism. The likelihood that you have been born into and bred into a religion is quite high. It's a high likelihood. But to achieve freedom in its purest form for humanity, for human beings, you cannot force a belief system, a religion, on someone. You cannot force that. This is where man has, if you will, and woman, humanity, has been very illy, gravely wrong, when they have forced a religion, a belief system of reality, of creation, on a person, a society, a group. That's where it has been grossly wrong. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. You can invite. You can invite, but you cannot mandate. And that, in my opinion, is why the United States has been so successful. Because it is said, fine, we are Judeo-Christian founders, principally governors, but we agree to disagree. We do not mandate a religion on people. We have freedom of religion. Judaism, there is no way, in my view, that Israel is attempting to conquer the world economically. It's just not something I agree with. I do not agree with that. Jews have been some of my best friends, and they're the most philanthropic of the people that I know. Nor do I believe that they have the organization to achieve that. Israel, as we know it, is a product of the Balfour Declaration. Israel as a state country has only come into existence within the past many decades, right? What is it, 80 years, 100 years? So it is not Judaism. They are not that organized. Nor is Islam. They are not that organized. The only institution that has been around now for almost 2,000 years that has that organization and that network ability would be the Vatican. And that is exactly why I suggest you consider the morals and the practices historically of the Order of the Jesuits by Ignatius Loyola. These people, this is, therefore, if that is correct, if this is correct, folks, if it is correct, I'm not saying it is correct. It's up to you to make the decision. I will present, and I'm going to present a little bit right here, facts. And it's up to you. Look, it's up to you. And you don't even have to figure out who's behind the central bank corruption. You can just say, hey, look, it's not constitutional. I want my constitution. You're censoring me, and I want the debt paid off. Who cares who's controlling it? I've mentioned some of these families. Who cares who these families are? Who cares? You simply want your rights, and you want your ability to continue to debate, and you want your ability to do it peacefully. That's what you should be concerned with as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So, if you get into vote scam, if you get into Edmund Walsh, who basically is a Jesuit pawn to put FDR into place, and FDR wrote his manifesto, right? It's very similar to the Communist Manifesto. And then you get into Catherine the Great of Russia, the Pale of Sentiment, that basically created Hitler and Stalin. This is all instigated by the Jews. Excuse me, not the Jews, the Jesuits. The early Jesuits were Jews that supposedly converted to Catholicism. And that's where I think a lot of people start pointing fingers at the Jews. But the Jews are not that organized. They simply are not. And nor do I think the Jews would ever want, in my personal opinion, would ever want to control. You don't have a history. You don't have the Jews, for instance. As people argue that Christopher Columbus was Jewish. You don't have the Jews being organized. They've never organized themselves on a global scale to conquer lands, like the French have, like the English have, like the Spanish have, like the Portuguese have, like the Italians have. The Jews have never done that. These are, and this right. This is another angle, right? This is why people pick on the white man, right? Because it's the white man that's done this, isn't it? Yeah, it is the white man. Right, but it's also the white man that's created the foundation of the United States of America, isn't it? Okay, and thank goodness to strong and incredible black people and black men and women, we've been able to sustain that freedom. But folks, censorship? No, big tech censorship? That's not free. Mandatory vaccines? I don't care what your ethnicity is. It's not free. That's not freedom. Okay, so not to make this racial. I'm looking at facts. I'm looking at facts. Okay, so you don't have, most people. This is why most people don't like talking about. And I frankly don't like talking about religion in politics because it offends people. I don't want to offend people. All right, so let's get back to some of the facts here. Let's just look at some of the facts, and this is typically why I do not talk about these types of things. Because I just look at the basics. I look at the basics, and that are inalienable rights and rights granted to people through the U.S. Constitution. I keep mentioning that because that is the backbone. And the country is so backwards today that you've got all these socialist agendas in these classrooms, and you've got the critical race theory, and you've got the BLM and the Antifa. I mean, this country is under fire. This country is on fire. A very peaceful country had no business getting into any of those wars in the past 100 years. It just simply hasn't. Okay? It simply hasn't. I mean, that's just my viewpoint. I'm a non-aggressive person in that sense. I become aggressive when my rights are taken away from me. Verbally aggressive. Right? No, I'm a non-violent person. I make that very, very clear to you. So anyway, the Jews have not had that level of sophistication on a military scale. The Catholics have, and those that are part of churches that stem back to Catholicism, i.e., the the Church of England, have. Okay, so that's why I think if you look at the work of Eric John Phelps and you look at what he's doing in regards to the Jesuit, the Society of Jesus, I believe that they have corrupted the Vatican. I believe so. I believe so. I believe that is worth your time to investigate that. And I'm going to leave this. I'm going to leave this episode by mentioning this. Where can you find this information? I'm going to put it up on my website right now, and you can find it there. And you're going to find it under Protocols of Zion. Okay, I'm going to list it there on the website, so you'll be able to find that here in about the next 30 minutes. This is what I want you to get at. This is the information. And by the way, Herschel Walker, that's somebody I'm getting behind. He's a former, I believe, a football player. Just so happens that he's African American. Joe Collins, a good friend of mine, African American. Okay, people, stop making these things racial. This is what this order wants, I believe. So we're going to an FBI.gov, an FBI.gov document that I will put up on my website. And I read you the following. And this comes from Eric John Phelps. According to Leo H. Lehman, the Elders of Zion are a Jesuit-created facade created to govern Israel, mainly organized post-Balfour Declaration. Their protocols, this is not verbatim. This is simply my reiteration of the information that I received from one of his episodes. Their protocols call for various agendas to be carried out on humanity. Religious crusade. That is verbatim from this Eric John Phelps, former guest of mine. Again, according to Lehman, the Jesuit bankers therefore control the Rothschild. Okay, so that would mean that noble families historically, like the Orsinis, like the Aldobrandinis, like the Gaetani, by power and wealth would far exceed that of the control of the Rothschild. And certainly by puppets such as Gates, Musk, who's the fellow out of Mexico. Anyway, people of that nature. It would imply that. Whether that's fact or not, I don't know. But why I do what I do is I want you to investigate. And if you don't have a problem with the way the country is moving and going, then you don't. Don't investigate. I urge you to. So anyway, FBI.org, the Protocol 10. Protocol 10. I'm going to read it to you right now. I got to put this up on my website. You can find it there. Protocol 10. We shall, and this comes from the Elders of Zion. And Eric John Phelps argues that the Elders of Zion would appear in name to be the Jews, but simply not. And they are the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. We shall establish one king over all the earth who will annihilate all causes of discord, such as frontiers, nationalities, religion, state, debts, etc., and get peace and quiet which cannot be secured in any other way. Bull cow. To attain our ends, we must foment trouble in all countries, utterly exhaust all humanity with dissensions, hatreds, struggles, envies, torture, starvation, and, here's the ringer, folks, the inoculation of diseases, so that the Goyim cattle will be forced to take refuge in our complete sovereignty in gold and all else. That pretty much sums up 2021, doesn't it? The United States has no gold. And the United States is basically being forced, unless you oppose it, which I do, forced inoculation. Okay, and it is the country's in a major distress with the borders being opened. I mean, XYZ. So I try not to make things political. I try to simply just present guests and researchers. But folks, I have no other choice but to tell you that this looks like a battle in a holy war. It's what this looks like. And if you allow, I'm just going to say this, if you allow someone to dictate to you what God is, that is your biggest mistake. Because if you look at a religion like a business, it's the most brilliant business ever created by the human being. It's the most brilliant business. It simply is. To define and tell someone what creation is, what their existence is subjugated to. It's brilliant. Because if you can control their God and cause them to define God, you control every aspect of their life, which I believe is being done through the control of the Federal Reserve, central bank, controls the government, controls the media, controls education, controls the military. And here's the base fact: whether you want to get religious or not, which I urge you not to, I simply urge you to fight for people's freedom to practice religion freely, but not impose it. Right? Big difference. I would urge you to simply ask yourself the question: why is the Federal Reserve Central Bank private? And why is the United States in a $30 trillion debt? And why, regardless of Democrat or Republican, is that debt not paid off? These are the principal questions I urge you to be asking. I urge you to do something about it, because your country is being destroyed. Whether it is the Jesuits, or whether it is Islam, or whether it is the Hindus, or whoever it is, religion, or whether it's simply a World Economic Forum or the Bank of International Settlements, whatever it is, there is clearly a global order that is attempting to establish that UNICEF goal, or control, or order. It's where we're at. It's where we're at. And the only thing stopping them, the only thing standing in their way, is the United States of America. It certainly isn't Australia. And it certainly aren't the Canadians. Now, the Mexicans have it in them. The Mexicans have it in them. Will the Mexicans pull it out? The Brazilians have it in them. The Brazilians have it in them as well. But the Mexicans, clearly, on the North American continent, the Mexicans can make a difference. If you're in Mexico and you're listening to this, you can make a difference. You can throw out that cabal in your country. You can throw that country, because you've done it before. You've done it before. You didn't throw out enough of it. And right now, that banking cabal totally has the United States enslaved. And America, you're burning. You are burning. You need a fire retardant. You need a fire retardant. So I will, the protocols of Zion, I'll get those, that's an FBI.gov. You'll find information from J. Edgar Hoover. Of course, all declassified. There, it's vault.fbi.gov. You'll find that information on my website under the research tab. And, coming up here I'm going to bring Carla Spalding. Happens to be an African-American woman out of Florida running for a political seat. Bring her onto the show shortly. And also confirmed for the show is a brilliant medical doctor by the name of Dr. Peter A. McCullough. He is quoted as saying this: "This is the most lethal, toxic biologic agent ever injected into a human body in American history." That'll be November 24th. Here on Discussions of Truth. I'm Ian Trottier. If you like what I do, throw me a few bucks. Help me out. And that'll help me get this book out into circulation. Greatly appreciated. If you do nothing more, then pass the episode on. Folks, until next time, be awesome.